What's up, folks? Welcome to Monday Night Live. Got a good guest tonight. Jonathan's going to be here in probably about 10 minutes. So we're going to do just a little house clean. We can jump into a few topics if you guys want to talk about something. I see Jay Betha's on here, and let me pull your comment up. And so everybody that's on here can chime in on this. It says, evening, everyone. Hope they're biting for everyone. What's it going to take for the Big Bass Bash this weekend? Any guesses out there? I see Gary says 6.72. We'll probably do it. I was going to say less than 7, like right there where Gary's at. I'm thinking like 6.89 comes to mind. I don't know. Usually the spring weight is a little bit bigger than the fall weight. And not a lot of big fish being brought in lately. This weekend's BFL, I don't know. I don't know what the big bass was actually, but I sure didn't see any 6.5, 7 pounders brought in. I guess we'll find out. I thought about fishing that, but I think I'm going to fish here locally. There's a couple tournaments coming up. And speaking of tournaments down there on Lake of the Ozarks, just to remind you guys, I know there's going to be a lot of people on here tonight from the Lake of the Ozarks area. And the Warrior William Foundation, Fishing for Warriors 2021 tournament is going to be held on Lake of the Ozarks October 9th. It's a charity event. It's a great cause. $1,000 first place guarantee, 100% payback on the big bass. It's $170 per boat, and that includes big bass drinks and a dinner Friday and Saturday. And if you want some more information on that, go to warriorwilliam.com, I do believe, and you can find all the details that you want. There's a story behind all that. It's a good cause, trust me. So great tournament. I'm not sure where it's going out of. I saw Jay on here. Jay, where's that going out of? Just to jog my memory again. Let's see what kind of comments we got coming on here. Got a good crew in here tonight. It's good to see you guys on here. Oh, while we're on here, I was going to say, I'm trying to think of another name for, like, instead of calling this Monday Night Live, this live stream, I was trying to come up with a different name to go off of. Meet the Angler was something I came up with. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Let me know if how the audio and the video is. I think I'm going to get a new wireless router to get this stream down here, the signal down here a little bit stronger, because I'm sitting here like I got one bar, and I don't know why that's happening. I used to not have a problem with that, but the last couple of streams, there's been a little bit of glitch in it. So hopefully it's okay. So what do you think about that name? Meet the Angler. I don't know. Any names out there? Throw them out there. Let's see. We got Darius on. We got Bill. What's up? Cody says, man, he's going big. Cody says 7.12. What's up, Rich? Good to see you on here. Larry Lee. Yep. Upper sixes. Bill says 7.3. And we got Doug on here from Trieve. So before we go any further, everybody home, give Doug a round of applause, because Doug and Gail won the Wapapello, the Bass Circuit, the championship. So they won $10,000, and then they had another $500, I believe, for second place big bass. So that's a big deal, man. And you know, Doug said he couldn't catch them in the fall. I talked to him several times. He's like, I don't know where they're at in the fall, and they win. So, you know, he was sandbagging. I think he knows what's up down there. Michael says 6.8. Kobe Baker says, what lake? Lake of the Ozarks. It's going to be this weekend. It's a 2-day tournament. There will probably be there can be as much as 3,000 people fishing. You can fish. I think you can fish 3 out of a boat, and you can fish anywhere you want. You know, lines in at I think 7 o'clock, and you fish till 3, and they have 4 weigh-ins. When we get Dion here, we're gonna break it down when he gets on here, and he can talk about it. So that's gonna be the cool thing about this show, is we're gonna kind of just discuss what's going on down there right now. And if you guys are fishing this weekend, you'll have a little bit better idea of what to expect when you head that way from Dion, because he knows that place pretty good. See, Tom says 6.87. Says, Gabe, it was nice meeting you on the docks at the BFL week. Yeah, same here, man. Same here. I met a lot of cool people down there. It was cool. It was a really good time. Had a great time down there. Qualified for the regionals. Did not fish day 2. I had 5.8, and it took 6.2 to make that second day cut. So I was a little bit close. Ended up finishing 42nd, but I moved up to 34th in the points. In the BFL, they take the top 45 to the regionals. The regionals are at Norfolk Lake. So I qualified for the regional. That was one of the goals. The other, of course, was to make day 2, which that didn't happen, but went down there and got it done. So I'm going to be fishing for a spot in the All-American. I'm excited for that. They take basically it's a 2-day. Everybody's guaranteed 2 days. So you're going to fish Thursday and Friday, and they take the top 12 to fish that 3rd day, and then they take 6 from that to fish the All-American. Really cool. And then there'll be some qualifiers from the wild card, which I don't know if they announced that yet. Does anybody know if they announced the wild card for the BFLs? I know they announce it after all the super tournaments are over, and I don't know if they're done. It has to be really, really close. There may be some more coming up this weekend. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, it is chaos. I've fished the Big Bass Bash a couple times, and it's just every cove has a bunch of people in it. And I'm kind of going to get when Dion gets on here, we'll talk about what his strategy would be. We had Jack on here last week, and he said it's not a bad idea to run way up the river. Unfortunately, if you catch that 3 to 4 pound bass, they have an exact weight bass. I think it's $500 if you weigh in a 3 pound bass, $500 if you weigh in a 4 pound bass. When you get too far up the river, you can't really make that run to a weigh-in site because it's so far. It's just too time consuming. So if you fish up the river, you're kind of committed to catching a big fish. But that's a good strategy to get away from the crowd, because you get down there around the glaze, and from the glaze to the dam up to the Niangua, all the way up to Niangua, everything's covered up. But you can still go behind people and catch fish. You're just looking for one bite, and it happens all the time. If you're good at sliding whatever bait you got up underneath those docks a little bit further than everybody else can do it, you're going to reach fish that haven't been pressured. And I would imagine that's going to start happening. Those fish were kind of sitting on the corners, the front corners and the back corners of those docks. You could swim something by and they'd come out and grab it. I think definitely by Saturday, probably halfway through Friday, a lot of those fish are going to be back in those docks, and they're going to be a little bit harder to reach. The little ones are probably still going to be out on the edges for the most part, but I think those bigger ones are going to be back tucked in there. So you're going to have to cast. You're going to have to work for them a little bit. It's going to be a lot of probably going around the backs of docks. Just be a little bit different. We got Eric on here. What's up? Jonathan's in the house. What's up, man?
What's going on, guys?
Not much. Good to see you. Just kind of getting started. It started just a hair late. We were talking about what everybody thinks it's going to take to win the Big Bass Bash. I think I said 6.86. So
11 pounder.
11 pounder? Dude, I don't know. I don't know last time somebody's caught 11 pounder out of there.
I bet Dion's laughing right now.
Yeah. Maybe he's caught an 11 pounder.
Is there different classes for spot versus smallmouth?
No. Nope. It's just Big Bass Bash, man. Let's see here. Stephanie says a 6.82 won it in 2001. That's way back then. Ryan, he asked, which do you guys prefer, clear or stain water when fishing Lake of the Ozarks? Well, I kind of like, that standard color down there. It's basically like 3-foot visibility. It has a good stain to it, that lake does. The Niangua was a little bit clearer up there in the main river this weekend, but I like stain. I feel a lot more comfortable in some stained water. Anywhere from, a foot to 3 foot, maybe 4 foot, maybe 3 foot. That's kind of my favorite.
Yeah, I agree.
You with me on that?
I like a little stained water.
Just move this camera over here.
I don't prefer the clean water.
Yeah, I think with clean water, it's a lot of times it's more of a reaction strike. We had Matt Steffen on here. He fishes a lot of clean water, and he still fishes power techniques, but say something like fishing a jig on the outside of the grass line. He tends to stroke it really hard. He fish a heavier jig and he really pops it. So you're getting that reaction strike. Is where in dirty water, you might move it a little bit slower, give them time to find it, give them time to pick up on it. So we got Dion in the queue. Are you ready to jump on back there? Are you good? Give me a thumbs up if you are. You can hear? Okay, cool. Well, we'll go ahead and get Dion on here. We got 73 people in here, and they're definitely not here to listen to me and Jonathan talk. So we'll get the man, the myth, the legend on here, and he can fill us in on some stuff. Let's pull him in here real quick. Let's see. Okay, can you hear us? Okay, is your mic is muted on your end?
Can you unmute it?
Let me see. Let me see if I can unmute it here. Possibly. No, it still says it's muted on your end. I can't hear you.
How about now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Good.
Okay.
Let me change this screen here real quick so we get the full picture.
I think my computer guru was unmuting and you were muting. Yeah.
we were swapping out. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys were sitting there turning it off, and I'm like, okay, somebody's got to stop. You know. But anyways, she's at least smart enough to know how to mute it. I'm not smart enough to even open it up and turn it on. So
what do you think? What's your guess on what it's going to take to win the Big Bass Bash? The weight.
You know, me and Peyton fished last week, 3 days together. You know, everybody wonders why I didn't fish. Well, right now we got 2 boats, and you know, we don't like to ever crowd each other, you know, in a tournament. And with Lawson and Peyton fishing, I thought, wow, you know, maybe one of them can win, and I'll stay out of it. So our practice time we spent, you know, me just going out with him and basically just watching him. And, you know, if I had any clue, I would tell him. But anyways, to make a long story short, on last Tuesday, he slides up under a dock with a jig, and he says, oh, there's one. And as soon as he said he had one, I told him, I said, I wouldn't jerk on that one. And he says, why? I said, little dock. I said, it's a little dock. I said, there ain't nobody else ever throwed at that one. I said, because it was just a little old piece of crap looking dock. Didn't look like a fish had ever been under it. And 90% of the time when you pitch up to one of those, that's when one of them really strange ones happens. And I caught a couple of 9-pounders this year on the road, traveling around, and that was probably the biggest bass I've seen. I'm not too sure what the biggest bass I've ever seen out of Lake of the Ozarks. And the crazy thing about it was when he pulled on it, he didn't jerk at it. He just pulled on it. I said, just pull up on him a little bit, make him come to the top. He came to the surface, and it wasn't like a lot of the fish are right now. There's quite a few of the fish right now. They're kind of scrawny. And this one was big. I mean, you know, I'm not going to tell you it was a 10-pounder, but it was way bigger than any of the 6-pounders that we caught throughout last week. And like I say, he never caught it. He never caught it in the tournament. Went back there one day, and they were launching a boat and had it all muddy. You know, and then the other day went there, and as everybody knows, the second day it blew really hard, and that little tiny dock was bobbing up and down real hard. You know, it didn't have a lot of, you know, supports on it and stuff. It looked like a little dock where maybe they'd go down there and watch the sun go down or something. You know, it was not a fishing dock. And like I say, that fish is, like I say, it's bigger than any one that I've ever seen win the Big Bass Bash. I mean, it was 8, 9, something crazy like that. So yeah, I have seen a big one just recently. You know, now my son fished for it 2 days in a row and never did make a bite. And the second day in that wind, he fished for it 4 different times and never did make a bite. But like I say, and he didn't hook it the day that, you know, we found it. But it'll definitely take some 6-pounders, just like it always does. It won't be any different. There might somebody get lucky and catch a 7 or something like that, but it won't be nothing out of the ordinary from what it always has been. You know, Lake of the Ozarks is full of 3 to 5-pounders, probably as good as any lake we travel to or go to. But there is quite a few 6s. The weekend before the 2-day BFL, there was several 6-pounders caught that day. But I think in the BFL, a 5 530 something or something like that was the biggest one got caught in 2 days. And
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
I didn't remember hearing about a 6, but I
no,
wasn't sure.
no, it was like a low 5. It was like a 532. Because I watched the weigh in from start to finish both days. Um, so I know it was a low 5, but that happens. It's still September. Water temperature mid 70s. Low to mid 70s. That's just too hot for them big ones to really be chewing. Another 10 degrees and it'd be awesome. And I thought we were maybe going to get that by the Big Bass Bash, but now it's going to turn around and be in the high 80s and 90s a couple days this week. So I anticipate it possibly being tough, kind of like the BFL was. There was a half a dozen guys made that BFL look okay. And the sad part about tournament fishing, it only takes 3 or 4 guys catching them to make the tournament look like, wow, that's a pretty good tournament. But when it takes 12 something to make the cut to the second day, that's not like the Ozarks. That's not very good. It should take 14.5 to 15 pounds anytime to make the top 30 on Lake of the Ozarks. But September, water temperature still in the mid to high 70s or mid 70s, and just the big ones haven't really kicked off and really got up there and where you want them to be, or where I want them to be. So that's one of the deals. You just got to think about it.
Bass Fishing Full Z says you should have Peyton on. He was the winner. So you had Lawson was winning on day 1, leading on day 1. And I think somebody told me that Peyton on stage said that he was going to beat his brother the next day. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. So I think Lawson finished. Go ahead.
Don't forget they're brothers. Yeah, they're brothers. They fight nonstop. I had to eat supper with both of them last night. Oh yeah, you should have heard the crap they were coming up with. I mean, trust me, they're brothers. And Lawson hates to lose. I can tell you that right now. I mean, not that anybody doesn't hate to lose. If you bass fish and you don't mind losing, you're a loser. Simple as that. I'd like to put it somewhere else, but none of us like to lose. But Lawson fished up the lake. And the bad thing about up the lake is we don't have enough release areas way on up the lake and everything. And there was an abnormal amount of fishermen that fished from the Niangua up. I mean, a bunch of fishermen, a bunch of the anglers. I don't know how many y'all had in the tournament, but the bulk of them went up there. They were up the lake. And like I say, a lot of the Niangua carried a lot of boats, but on up the river there's just a ton of boats. And the thing about that is there's not enough release places up there to haul those fish back and to keep them replenished up there. So yeah, it was definitely led the first day way up the lake, but the second day of the tournament shows exactly what happens to the river fishing on Lake of the Ozarks. There's just not enough to go around for if you take a tournament that's got 180 or whatever boats it had in it, and you send 100 of them up there, yeah, they get beat up, because overall the fishing is normally a little bit easier up there, and I feel responsible for some of that. Out of the last 10 years, I've won the 2-day BFL like 3 times, always up the river. And that's the way that goes. You can't do it 2 days in a row very often. Like I say, in all of those that I won up the river, the second day I almost always had to come back. And when I say come back, I would have to come back to 10 Terra and below, to finish up my day. And Lawson had taken a lot of time, put out a lot of good brush that you should catch a fish out of. And like I said, by the second day at noon, and the thing of it is, it's really hard to make yourself turn around and come back to finish up the day. It feels like when you make that run of 50 miles or 60 miles that you just gotta, okay, I'm gonna stick with it. And in the end, he caught the biggest stringer that got weighed in up there. Fishback, he caught him up there. Mike Malone caught him up there. Several of the guys in the top 5 caught him up there, and none of those guys caught him the second day. You know, they all kind of petered out. You know, and that's just the way it is. You know, it's just hard. It's hard up there 2 days in a row because you're gonna run out of fish. You know,
well, you sit there. If you sit there and watch those bags leave the boat, go up and get weighed in, come back down. You stand there by the guy that shoves those fish down the fish tube, and you look at how many fish are thrown into PB2. It's unbelievable. And those fish, if 100 of those boats worth of fish came back from up the river there, I mean that's a lot of fish.
That's a lot of bass. And the thing of it is, you're not counting the Wednesday nighter. Our Wednesday nighter has 60 and 70 boats in it.
Wow.
And they are the best fishermen on Lake of the Ozarks. And a lot of those guys don't fish like the BFLs. So a Wednesday nighter brings in, those numbers of fish too, They can only weigh in 4 during their tournament, but still everybody's got 4 nice ones, It's one of the most competitive tournaments on Lake of the Ozarks. Is the Wednesday night tournament that everybody says, oh, yeah, let's go fish that for fun. No, I wouldn't fish that tournament for no amount of money. Those guys are, Lawson got to catching them this summer a little bit. He said, oh, let's go fish a Wednesday nighter. I said, different breed of cat. Don't forget, that's a different breed of fisherman. I said, those are the guys that fish 5 and 6 days a week, and fish at night a lot. And I, like I say, I won't fish one of them. I don't want to get beat that bad. And we've actually weighed in some big stringers. Last year we fished it one time. We got on a roll and had a couple of spots that we could catch, 20 plus, in 2 or 3 hours. And yeah, me and Lawson got in it. We went out there, we caught 5 that weighed 23. And needless to say, the biggest bag of the season got weighed in the same night. And we still finished second. I told him, I said, that's it. I'm never coming back.
You got your feelings hurt.
I'm a 2-time world champ. I'm not going to get treated like that, and he's like, yeah. He says, I don't like getting beat either. But he goes over there every now and then with Dirk, and they fish and compete in them a little bit. But, yeah, it's not for me. Those guys are tough. And some of them are not guys that you would know. A lot of the best teams are older class of guys that just – they fish around there because they like catching them. There's lots of fish and lots of bass in that area. So, it's and I really believe that's why tournaments like this, 2-dayers, Lawson would have made a whole different last day if he would have listened to me and his brother, and but when you're leading the tournament, you feel pretty bulletproof. You think, I can do that again tomorrow, but, after seeing the weigh-in, hearing the weigh-in, watching the guys that did catch them, there was a lot of the better stringers caught up there. And I told him after the first day, I said, it's not going to be that way tomorrow. I said, there's going to be a whole lot of them guys weighing 2, or 3. I said, there's not going to be all them 14s coming from up there. I said, because they're all gone, Mm-hmm. Those fish are now swimming in PB2, and that's just the way it is. I mean, I wish I could say it some way else, but you can talk to Marcus, you can talk to any of the guys that are real heavy hitters. No, don't talk to Marcus. He's never been up the river anyways. He knows better to come up there. He don't want to run into us. Trust me.
I think he ran from when the BFL was out of the river. I think he ran all the way back down to PB2 area.
Yes. Yeah, that's the way we do that too, Yeah. Peyton started at Millstone in that tournament, I told him, I said, well, how was that ride? And he says, wasn't worth the crap this afternoon, I'm like, yeah. He said, how far did you make it? I said, a little Buffalo somewhere in there. I said, that was too far for me, But anyways, the river just won't take the pounding. Used to, it would, but like I say, they just got to where they don't hold any tournaments up there, and there are not very many, and it makes it hard. And the only tournaments they do have out there is either out of Warsaw the Mid Lakes area, and those Mid Lakes guys that fish those tournaments, they're hard on them. They beat them up. They catch them one day, and about half them old timers that live up there and fish that thing, hell, they go fishing the very next day. And we got a lot of fishermen in this part of the world that they fish a lot. It's not just every weekend. No, they fish 4 or 5 days a week. And a lot of them might not fish but for 4 or 5 hours, but still, there's a lot of quality anglers that fish out here almost every day. Because it's so good. For the most part, the lake's so good. But anyways, it was a good tournament. You just got to kind of figure that out in your head, where you can go and when you got to, kind of throw a little change up on them. And like I say, I tried my damnedest to talk Lawson out of going back up there the last day, and he wouldn't do it, and
yeah,
and that's good. He's got to do it on his own. He's got to figure it out on his own. Peyton, for some reason, Peyton fished with his grandpa a lot, and my dad lived for about the last 20 years of his life in Buck Creek. And so they fished down the lake a lot together. And, when I got out there in the boat with him on Tuesday of last week, he pulled up on a stretch of docks and he says, "How many times you cut them off here?" I said, "This is the first time I've ever stopped here." And he's like, "Oh, bullshit." And I said, "No." I said, "This is the first time I have ever made a cast at the dock we're pulling up to." And then he told me, he said, "Oh, this is one of me and Pawpaw's favorites." I said, "Really?" I said, "It's a shame you guys didn't tell me that." But anyways, I mean, and that's just, I always spend the fall, up the lake, and Dad used to spend it down the lake a lot, but like I say, Peyton's a very good angler, very deserving to win. He's been out of it for a few years because of, family issues and different things. And so I was tickled to see him get back in it and catch him.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Brock's got a question, and this is something that I noticed as well in practice. He said that the topwater bite was so weird, the bass would slap at the bait and never eat it, and he wants to know why. I experienced that too. I had 5 blow up on a spook, like a Super Spook Junior, and they didn't really blow up on it. They just kind of rolled on it, kind of sloshed it, swirled on it. And a couple of them were pretty good fish, right off the front corners of the docks or right down the side first thing in the morning. And I switched from the Super Spook Junior. I put on a Sammy, thinking maybe they wanted something a little bit softer, a little bit more quiet, a little more subtle. And it was a different color. It was more of a bluegill, kind of translucent color. I didn't get a sniff on that. And then I switched up to the Sexy Dog. Same thing. I didn't want anything to do with that. So then I just put that Super Spook Junior back on. I never got a bite again. But, all those bites came within about 15 minutes. Never threw a whopper plopper, never threw a buzz bait. But what's your theory on that? What do you do in that situation?
I'm not a big, I love to throw a topwater. Don't get me wrong. Everybody does. And when it busts loose here, there's no place on the planet that's any better than here. But that is a full 10 degrees water temperature on into the fall. I mean, it is just too hot for that right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're not, you saw the shad. I mean, there's shad in a lot of these places, just billions of them. They're everywhere. And they're not even chasing them real hard. Just every now and then you'll see one come up in the middle of them, it's just way too warm for that right now. Do I think that's going to change between now and the Big Bass Bash? No, I don't. It's going to be one this year on a soft plastic bait or a jig. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. Just because everything's too hot. Mid-70s is not topwater stuff. Now, you might, it's like anything else. You're going to have 3,000 plus people out there chasing them around. So, yeah, accidents can happen. But, that's what it will be. If somebody wins on topwater, just mark my words, it's a blind ass accident. I mean, because it's just too warm. It's too warm. They're not in that chasing mood that good. I mean, you fished there for 2 days. When one comes up, swirls on it, and doesn't even try to get it, that's a fish that doesn't. You just threw too close to him. You threw close to him, and he, let me chase at it. When they want it, you can't get it away from them. And I don't care what top water you throw, because I've tried the same thing. I've went down to poppers. I've made sure I match the hatch. I've thrown things that didn't match the hatch. It's just, you can't push a top water here, until that water gets in the low, mid 60s, like say about 10 degrees, and you'll start seeing some people catching them on them, and you'll hear people catching them on them. I heard that the Mid Lakes tournament got won on a, plopper type bait. Guess what? If I fished the Mid Lakes tournament and I won and beat that crew of guys, there is no way I would tell them the truth, what I caught them. That's exactly what took place right there. Somebody won that thing flipping or pitching a worm around or something, and the first thing he could think of was he spit out plopper.
Yeah, they cut all their jigs off before they got back to the boat ramp and put ploppers on them.
Yep. Yeah, and if that guy was sitting here and if he was on this deal, I would call him a liar in a blink. Because
put a Bible out in front of him.
Yes, and that's no big deal. For one reason, he might have been fishing the BFL yesterday. And you can't give these guys a hint anymore. You just can't. Because everybody's too good. There's too many of those fishermen that just need one little tidbit, and then they can run with it and beat your butt. So I'm not a big believer that the plopper won weekend before. That water just too hot. I throwed it a little bit. I had the guide on Friday, and I throwed it around a little bit. Had a guy give me one out on the lake. Oh man, you got to be throwing this color. I said, how many have you caught this morning? He says, well, I haven't caught one, but I've had 3 bites. By golly, I left her in the package, put it in the compartment, and I never picked it up. And the guy that I was guiding, he asked me, he said, you gonna tie that on? I'm like, nope, sure not. I said, if he'd have told me he had caught 3 or 4, then I might have tied it on and tried it. But I said, as of when he gave me the bait, he said he had 3 or 4 bites.
Yeah.
I said, if you want to fish for bites, I said, yeah, tie it on. I said, I don't like to be like a musky fisherman and fish for follows and stuff like that,
It's hard to eat a bite sandwich, isn't it?
That's right. That's right.
Figure eight on a plopper next to the boat.
There is no, you can't sell it good enough to let you weigh one in.
Right.
Not at all. So
it's like win in practice.
That's right. But
I tell you what, you talk about that topwater bite, and I try to force it this weekend, just knowing the time of the year and knowing history with the water temperatures the way they are. We were in the low 70s this weekend. Early morning, it was 68, 69, which was great. I like seeing those lower water temperatures, and it gets me all fired. It gets me fired up that I want to catch them on that topwater. And we got grass, so I'm throwing a frog. I'm throwing a toad, something like that, and in 2 days, I got 2 bites on a frog.
Yeah.
So
grass changes the whole dynamic. If you got grass where you're fishing, they're shallower. Simple as that. They're around that grass and in that grass. The only kind of grass we have here is smart weeds.
Yeah.
And those are hard to catch them out of just because we don't have enough water, and the lake does go up and down 5-6 inches through the week. So.
Well, Jay said he didn't realize that you were an artist. He's noticed the drawing board, the blackboard that you got there in the background. It looks like you got a big fish, like something that would win the Big Bass Bash, and then maybe he's chasing a big shad or something. Is that
my wife draws stuff on that damn thing all the time?
It looked like a Bass University clinic going on behind you.
I've got a whole gross of grandkids, and she keeps them. She keeps them. She actually teaches. She teaches school. She teaches special needs. So
okay,
that's why she loves me so much. It's because I'm definitely special needs.
You guys are a great couple then.
Yeah, we work out perfect. But needless to say, yeah, she draws on that. She might have actually drew that before this thing started. I don't know.
Yeah,
she likes you guys.
Backdrop.
She likes watching you guys. She thinks you guys are the best podcast that I ever do. So So she
You've only
enjoyed
done one.
watching. She enjoyed the last one. She watched it from start to finish. I mean, so yeah, she might
It
have
was a lot of fun, man. We got a lot of good feedback off of that,
Yeah.
and those stories were just top notch. I laughed and laughed and laughed.
That's one thing about this deal. I mean, we have had some good times over the years. That's for sure.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
GR wants to know what patterns should he look for down by the dam, and I kind of want to talk about that too. So what I experienced was we had a little bit of a deep bite. We got out in some main lake points and caught some fish out in that 20-foot zone. But then we were also catching fish shallow off the docks and stuff, just, kind of swimming a jig and throwing a shaky head. So is there just a lot of everything going on, or what do you think's going on exactly?
That's the problem. That's why the fishing wasn't a little bit better in the tournament, is that they're all scattered. They know they need to be moving shallow and getting up there, but the water temperature's not there for them. So a lot of them are still out there in that. Me and Peyton, one of our best days last week was still in 18 to 20. Now we were around brush, for the most part, but still they're just scattered. When they get to moving, the nice thing about it, when they start migrating with those shad and moving, at least it clusters them up. Okay. It gets all the fish in that area kind of in a pack moving to where they need to be according to the food. Well, they're not even doing that yet. There's some of them with shad out there over that 20 feet of water. Weekend before last, in the Fishing for Sight tournament, that got one on live scope. They got one live scoping around those shad. And if you watch, your live scope, you'll see those 2 or 3 bass right under a big school of shad. And are those easy to catch? No, by no means. I don't care what kind of electronics you got. If a bass is in 30 feet of water and he's suspended 15 foot deep, he's a booger to catch. You got to get right in his face to make that son of a gun bite. And, they're standing under those big schools of shad, and, why would he bite your rubber bait or your swim bait or whatever you choose to throw down there when he's got 10 million of the perfect ones swimming above him? Yep. But I do know for a fact that that's how the tournament got won. And that's the only 20 plus pound stringer that's been weighed in for a while. So is that an accident? No, that's really solid fishing. But now, even a week later, some of those fish have moved on up shallow a little bit. So therefore, the reason that the tournament was overall pretty rough is because they're still all scattered. I caught just as many fishing with Peyton throwing out the back of the boat, throwing out into that 25 to 35 foot of water. And I just, for no other reason besides I didn't want to cast under the same docks with him and stuff like that, I made myself throw out a lot. And every day I caught them. I caught decent stringers of bass every day. And there was one day, Thursday, that I intentionally never throwed at the bank. I thought I'm just going to see how many I can catch out there. And that was my best day. I had like 17 or so.
No kidding.
Sitting on the back deck of the boat throwing a worm.
So you're a hell of a co-angler too. I didn't know that.
Oh, I wish I would have went ahead and fished that thing as a co-angler.
How would you like to have that draw?
Yeah. And Peyton told me, he says, "Yeah, you draw some guy take you to Warsaw and it just piss you off." And I said, "Yeah, that probably would, And why I did that is because I just want to see if the quality of fish, are they all in 15 foot or less, or are they still some of them out there? And sure enough, caught a couple of 5-pounders that day. And about noon, Peyton says, "You got to quit that." And I'm like, "What?" He said, "You're confusing the hell out of me." He says, "I don't know what the hell I want to do now." I said, "Oh, well, buddy, let me tell you something. Forget this ever happened." I said, because there's no guarantees you're ever going to get lucky and throw through the right school of shad and stuff like that. So the whole thing is they were, they're still scattered. They're very, very scattered right now. And like I say, everybody wants to throw top water, but it's just too warm. It's too warm, I've always felt like it needed to be 65 to 60 to really buzzbait them, whopper, plopper them. Now, a spook, it happens a little bit earlier. And if you get a fish around a piece of cover or a piece of brush or even the front corner of a dock, sometimes you can make him bite a spook. So that's normally what we start with. We start with spook type baits. And it's nothing more than you can really walk them back and forth just real slow, I feel like I can make a fish come from 8 or 10 foot deep to eat a spook. So that's kind of what we start with. But the easy stuff, the plopper, the buzzbait, no, that's 10 degrees water temperature or more from being consistent enough that you can go out there and try to fish a tournament with it.
So the pattern down by the dam would be put the boat in 15 foot and throw out in 35?
You can. I'm just telling you, you can. I've only got one son, Lawson's twin brother, that can actually fish the big bass bash. And I told him, I said, well, I'm just going to tell you right up front. I said, you're going to hate the way I think you should fish. And he said, well, I won't do it then. And I said, I know you won't. I said, there's no doubt in my mind. I said, just talk to your big brother and see what he says about it. And the only reason I would encourage him to do that is because nobody else can do it. You're not going to have, out of 3,000 guys that are coming there to show up fish, they got to throw at something. There's just that mentality. They're going to throw at the bank. They're going to throw at a boat dock. They're going to throw at any piece of visible cover they can find. Even the guys that can live scope, they still want to throw at something. If that thing don't show them a fish, they're not going to throw out there. They're not going to throw to that fish where there's a lot of them at right now. Me and Peyton were coming back, and we were somewhere there around Alhana, that area, right at dark one night. White bass coming up. I mean, just coming up, 2 or 3 acres of them.
Yep, we saw that too. It's crazy.
I said, stop, let's catch us a mess of them boogers. We shut her down. Well, of course, we didn't have many things in the boat to throw to them. And I started throwing a little tiny spinnerbait that I found in the floor of the boat. Catch one every other cast. And nice ones, good big ones, 2-pound white bass. And Peyton gets on the right bait to where he can start catching them. And, we fill up a limit of white bass in, 10 minutes. Before I left, I picked up my worm. I threw it out there right in the middle of them. 4.5 pounder. 4.5 pound largemouth right there with that big old school of white bass. And I told Pate, I said, you want me to throw again? And he's like, heck no. He says, there ain't no way I could start out here. He said, or fish out here. And he said, the only time you're going to see these again would be right at daylight, And he says, no, don't throw out there again. I said, don't try to entice me into fishing out here. And I said, dude, I'm just telling you, there's a lot of them still out. And so it was different, it was different.
GR wants to know, do you ever fish big swim baits? And is that an option for the big bass bash for catching a big fish?
Absolutely. That would probably be what I strung on and fished a lot of the time because there's still so many of those fish out in the lake where nobody's throwing at them. And it would be a big swim bait, probably, maybe a big spoon. The only problem with pitching a big spoon around is the fact that you want something, you want it to stop falling at some point in time. And where a lot of these fish are, you'd be all weak getting it to the bottom. So, you don't want to let it fall over about 30 foot because that's about where the thermocline's at. But, it would probably entail stuff like that. A swim bait that you can get down there and, and some other baits that you can get down there, so yeah, that's not a bad plan. Not at all.
So like a 1 ounce head, is that?
Well, you want it to get 15, 18 foot a lot. You want to be able to work it slowly, and it be 15 to 18 foot, So whatever swim bait you come up with to do that, that's all these swim baits are so nice anymore. I'm like,
Yeah.
Well, it's crazy. I don't even like to talk about how many of them bastards I got, because they look good to me, and I'm like, well, I got to have a couple of them,
Yeah.
And then if I accidentally catch something on it, then I got to have me about a dozen of them, and it's nothing more that it's they all do basically the same thing. I've got two kinds that I throw. I got one that's got a real quick wiggle to it, the tail really goes that. And then I got some of them ones that just go like this, just barely swim along, And there's a time and a place for both of them. But like I say, if you can make it work out there in 15, 18 foot deep, yep, that's a good idea. There's nothing wrong with that game plan.
Do you throw any of the glide baits, Dion?
A few. I'm not big on. Lawson's pretty big on them. He feels like it's something that we need to learn more about. I've never had a huge day on it, but I have caught a few big ones on it. It's beautiful in the water. I mean, that's all I can say about it. And like I said, I've seen Lawson wreck them on it a time or two, but it's one of them deals. I've just not had that banner day on it yet, so it's not big in my arsenal. I'd much rather throw a swim bait.
Yeah.
You don't have to take a second mortgage out yet on those big glide baits.
No.
Yeah, some of them $200, $300, $400, man. It's crazy.
That's for Dale Bergman and some of them guys. He can buy them, and when he catches them on them, there was 2 years ago, he bought two baits, one for him and one for his fishing partner, and it was $1,100.
Holy cow!
Okay, 2 weekends in a row they crushed them. 2 weekends in a row. It kept on cooling down, and by the third weekend, we started peeling him on a little jig around the bank, and he's like, wow, that was a lot of fun for 2 weekends, but he says, I can get a bite on it now. But for 2 weekends, they crushed them, and that's been a couple years back. But
was that water temperature related then?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It was, it was because that's where the big ones were at. But as soon as it cooled on off, they finally moved up on the bank, and and he was done. I mean, because would you throw a $600 freaking swim bait close to the bank?
Oh, heck no.
Yeah.
Heck no.
Yeah, I'd glide that right into the first dock roof that came along.
Yeah, and they don't cast that good either.
No, they're terrible. They kite around through the air and stuff. Yeah, I'd have that broke immediately. And you can't skip the bastards. I mean, you can't skip one at all. We do skip a lot. Okay, I mean, and we skip a lot because of what you guys were talking. You guys were talking a little bit when I first got on here, about putting your bait where other people can't and stuff like that. And I don't think it's just because I can put my bait where the average Joe can't, as much as it's not the normal way people get their baits in the water. A lot of it's overhand, a lot of it's pitching. And it just, when you skip that thing across the surface and it hits the water and it skips to its final destination, that 4 or 5 feet, you have fooled that bass before he even sees your lure. He thinks that's a minnow. He thinks that's a minnow hopping across the surface of the water. And so he's rushing to it before he even sees your bait. And that's why we skip a ton. I mean, we skip a ton just because I feel solely it's my opinion, doesn't have to be anybody else's, but I think I fool that bass lots of times before he even sees my bait. If you get in
talk about fall rate.
Heavy pressure, any lake you fish, I quit throwing overhanded. I mean, I go down the bank skipping that dude. Anytime I get around where there's tons of fishermen and stuff like that, I immediately go to skipping. And I really think it fools them to the extent that he's going to my bait. And as well as I do, a big bass, if he takes the time to make an advancement to your lure, he's going to take a whack at it. Simple as that. If he finally does get to it and it even remotely looks good, he has taken the time. I can't explain it really well. Big bass are professional eaters. They're like the chubby guy sitting at the buffet. Okay. He knows how to stack a plate. Simple as that. He knows what he wants to eat. He's going to eat the most fattening crap that's up there. He's a professional eater. The bigger a bass gets, he is the same way. He's a professional. Okay. So when you skip your shad in there, he knows what a real shad looks like. You think when you throw a plopper or a buzzbait down the bank that thing doesn't know that's not a gizzard shad? Trust me, if he's got a second to look at it, he knows the difference. Okay? But if you skip that thing in there and it just goes, across the surface 4 or 5 times right before it reaches where it's supposed to be, most of the times I hear my fish bite my bait under them docks. They're going to make a big old whoosh, you can hear it boil a lot of times. That's not happening right now. But when they really get tied up under them docks, I hear half the time, I hear them get it, most of the time. But even like I say, going down little regular banks, if it's in a high pressure area, I skip that dude in there. If he's
skipping
so
when
an open bank,
you're skipping
no
when it's not necessary to skip.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. If I think somebody's been down that bank before me, absolutely, I skip my way down them banks all the time. There's lots of underhanded stuff that me and Lawson do throughout the year, and it's just one of them deals. It just sounds good to a fish. You're fooling him in a couple different ways. It's not just him seeing it visually saying, oh, there it is. That's what I want. You're fooling him with the motion of the bait a lot of times. And like I say, it's just one of those things. Once you get used to doing it, then it's second nature to you. Do I ever make an overhand cast? Absolutely. I'm no different than anybody else. But when I get to fishing around lots of people and stuff, I start paying attention to how my lure's going in the water and stuff. I can't hardly throw a whopper plopper once it comes plopper season because I'm going to break the tails off everyone I own. Because 99% of the time I throw it on the bank. I make that $1 land on the bank because I don't want it going in there and poloosh, because there's nothing on the planet that he eats that makes that noise, and when they're really biting a plopper, they're in 2 foot or less. I mean, simple as that. Catching them out off the ends of docks and catching them out on points a little bit, still, that fish is a couple feet from the surface when that's really happening. So, I throw a buzzbait with a horny toad on it because I don't tear up as many heads, because I slip that horny toad clean up over the head and the horny toad hits the bank, because, the reason here, I'm going to explain something to you real quick. The reason they get on them big black rocks, that's when you're whopper plopping them a buzzbait. The reason they get on them big black rocks and stuff is because the gizzards can get behind them. The gizzards can get between the rocks and the bank, and that's when that stuff is working the best. Okay, so how are you going to present your bait in there quietly? You just virtually can't. So I throw buzzbait more than I do the others because I know I can get it in the lake quietly. And it actually a horny toad with one, you can skip it. You can skip them a little bit because that horny toad's pretty dense and pretty heavy. Now if you try to skip a buzzbait with anyway else, no, you're gonna buy a lot more fishing line. But like I say, that's where they live. That's where they want to be. And you don't want to throw up there and splash down right on top of him. Now, yeah, if you're in a situation where you can parallel the bank and you're bringing it over a long distance, then yeah, you're fine. You throw it up there, make it splash. The ones within 10 feet of where it hits, yeah, you ain't catching that one. But, you bring it down the bank 30 yards and yep, you can catch one. But, that's just my opinion of that stuff too. It's not like I'm the best plopper, top water fisherman, but I do know where those gizzards, why they get on those certain rocky banks. It's because they can get behind those rocks. If you just see a black spot setting out off the bank, yep, you'll catch one off that every now and then. But when that black spot is this far from the bank, that's perfect cast. That's the one where he lives. Like I say, you have a hard time landing a plopper that close. People have a hard time throwing a $20 bait that close to the bank.
That's understandable.
I mean, yeah, and there's
I know I've spent thousands of dollars on them dudes. So, but
when you talk about skipping that jig up underneath that dock, how many of your bites come on the fall?
90% of them.
Really?
Yeah, at least 90% of them. Very seldom, unless there's a piece of brush there, 90% of them hit it before it gets 2 feet deep.
Okay, so talk about fall rate. I was going to bring that up a while ago. The fall rate. In the fall, do you want it falling fast or do you want it to glide down?
That can vary.
Okay.
Right now, Payton caught several of his fish in this tournament on a 3/4 ounce jig.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of them by no means, but I sat in the back of the boat with him, and I was actually sitting in the floor of the boat. I retied a big football to throw out deeper while he was fishing, and I slung it out in front of a dock and caught one 2 feet deep. And I didn't think a thing about it. I told him, I said, well, it's kind of an accident. And he fished front corners of some docks and stuff like that. And about an hour later, I picked up the same jig, made about 4 casts out in front of some of them docks, and caught another good one. And as soon as I caught the second one, he said, "Ooh, looks like they want that thing fast." And sometimes they want it sickling down to the.
You kind of froze up there, Dion.
I'm back.
You're back. All right.
So sometimes they want it fast, sometimes they want it slow. And it's trial and error on that a lot. This time of year, especially, I think if you get in a place that's just got herds of them shad, sometimes they want a little faster. So I'll use a little bit heavier bait, a little bit heavier jig in those instances. If I go in a place and there's not many shad around, then a lot of times I'll stick with something pretty subtle, pretty light. And we throw other things besides jigs too, but like a fluke, a lot of guys throw a fluke out around them docks and stuff like that. The only time I'm going to throw a fluke around a boat dock to catch a bass that's suspended, it better be dead slick calm, no wind, nothing chasing, and then I'll throw a bait like that. But because I think they, sometimes you just got to lull them into, okay, I'm going to eat it, but most of the time they want it to surprise them. They want that jig going by them, so, it varies. That's a trial and error deal right there. I'll have 3 jigs tied on the front deck of my boat every day right now, and that'll be from a 3/8 to a 3/4, 3/8, half ounce, and then a 3/4. And at any given minute, I'll skip any one of the 3 up under a dock, just to give them a try, see what they want to see. And the crazy thing about it is lots of times the dominant bass, he's the fast one. He's the one that will chase after it and get it as fast as anything, so, but there's some days they don't want to chase it. I mean, and like I say, I started out the morning, all 3 of them laid out, hopefully by about 8 o'clock, I've got 2 of them put away and I got 1 that they want, but until I get a bite, I'm going to alternate off and switch up. So
that's great, man. That's solid advice. Cause you always wonder about that. Like being a co-angler, a lot of times, like recently, my boater was throwing a heavy jig, like I think he had a half ounce and 3/4 ounce, maybe a 3/4 ounce. I'm not really sure. It was falling pretty heavy. So I was trying to, he was swimming that jig around docks, and we were up the river, Niangua, and he's caught a lot of fish. He was hitting that front corner, then throwing down the side, then hitting the other front corner, swimming it down the front, and then doing the same thing on the other side, and then putting the trolling motor on 100 and going to the next dock.
Yeah.
So that's what I was doing all day long. So I wanted to fish shaky head because I've been catching some fish on the shaky head, but I couldn't. He wouldn't slow down enough for me to really soak it a little bit. So I was trying to come up, with something in between. So I thought, well, maybe I could fish a little bit more finessey jig, and that really didn't work. I got lucky and caught a few behind him, but he was really covering water and catching those getting that reaction strike off the corners of those docks and the sides of those docks. And then I was thinking, maybe I'll just throw a 3/4 ounce so it'll fall really, really quick. And then I got hung up and broke it off. And I did it again. I got hung up and broke it off because he wasn't stopping for nothing. I went through like 4 or 5 jigs that day. It's just the way it was.
It varies from day to day too. I personally think as the water cools on off, they speed up. I think they get really fast, and they want it really fast a lot of times. Was the front corners of docks this year the way to win? No, not at all. You had to get it down in a piece of brush every now and then to catch the right ones.
Mm-hmm.
Or from what practicing we did and what Lawson and Payton did, you had to have a little piece of brush there. So fishing the right docks was a big key. That's why 2 kids that fish out here a lot, that's why they did well. Corey Cook, there's nobody puts in more brush than he does. I've told Marcus, I said, you're going to have to hire a bigger crew of guys, put in more brush. I said, because Cook is beating your ass.
Yeah, he outbrushed him.
Yeah, he outbrushed him. Simple as that. My dad used to ask Marcus, what's the matter? You saw run out of gas, and
slacking, boy.
Yeah. But Corey's got the right job to where he can go and put in new brush, just every couple of weeks, he puts in new stuff. So, and that's what you got to do. You throw a little bit of green stuff in there, first one comes by is going to stop. Simple as that. And the first big one that comes by is going to root that one out and take his spot. And then the right one is standing there. I'm a firm believer in that there's a natural pecking order. And if you put something pretty and green in the water that'll stay green for a little bit, trust me, a big one will end up in it just within a matter of days. Just because it's good, shady, good ambush stuff. You put stuff in there without any leaves, that's not a great ambush stuff. That's just something he'll live around. But if it's got green leaves on it, he ambushes lots of food out of that stuff because he's totally camouflaged. He backs up in them leaves. I know, I've seen him. I've seen him put in a fresh piece of green stuff, come by and it had floated up a little bit shallower or something. I didn't put enough weight on it or something like that. And I go in there to grab it and a big one swirls and runs out of it. It's what they like. I mean, they like that stuff.
Well, if you're going to eat and you see 2 or 3 picnic, it's a sunny day and you got your you got your little Happy Meal or whatever. You're going out there to sit outside and you see 3 picnic benches. One of them's got an umbrella. You're going to go to the one with the umbrella on it because it's got more shade.
He's going to be in the most comfortable area under that dock, closest to the food. Simple as that. He's going to be, it's no different deer hunting or anything else. You want to kill a giant deer, you better be sitting real close to a bedding area. Everybody, I like to sit around the food. Well, you're never going to kill a giant because them giants don't come out during the day. You got to go sit over a bedding area and watch. And hopefully you'll see his horns turn once, there he is, and that's just the way it is. You ain't going to see a giant during the day. And to say giants live under them docks everywhere, no, they don't. They're going to be in the best hiding spot under that dock. Simple as that, and you got to keep that in mind while you're fishing,
They didn't get big by eating every little cricket that came by their face.
No, heck no,
sir.
They've seen a lot of stuff. They've been around for a while.
You better answer Kenneth.
Yeah, you kind of touched on that a little bit. If you're fishing the bass, what would your bottom bait of choice and depth be? I mean, you kind of touched on it, but you got anything to add to that?
This is going to be a year where where a 10-inch power worm is going to end up really playing a part. And why I say that, the bulk of the bash guys will throw what they have the most confidence in. Okay. And I'm a big believer in that. I'm a big believer. You got to be putting something out there that you got a lot of confidence in. And like I say, it would really surprise me if a 10-inch power worm doesn't catch a great big one this year. Simply because tons of boats throw it. I mean, they throw a big worm here all summer long, and you're not that far from the way we catch them back in July, you know. So yeah, I think a big worm's going to catch some big ones. And there are a lot of those fish in that right kind of depth range and stuff like that. And a big worm, you talk about catching them suspenders, that's a fine way to catch them, you know, because that big old ribbon tail just kind of paddles down through there. And I mean, it's just a good slow moving tail, you know. You don't want something that kicks real fast, you know, you want something, it's still warm, you know, it's still warm. So, you know, like I say, to me, you know, that's going to happen this year, you know, simple as that.
So what's two colors of worms that you would throw? I think I already know, but
plum and green pumpkin.
Plum and green pumpkin. Yep.
Plum and green pumpkin. I mean, and the plum, I like the darker plums. I actually like a power worm plum because it's more of a real dense, dark purple.
Yeah.
You know, doesn't have a ton of flake in it. You know, the flake is real drab, you know, and then green pumpkin. I mean, green pumpkins, you know, I'm not going to throw, I would have two of them tied on, and it would be those two, you know, simple as that.
Yeah, I threw the all monster a little bit, and it's a lighter plum. It's more of a translucent plum. It wasn't quite bold enough. You know, it seemed like it was a little too subtle for the watercolor.
I throw black a lot too, but I think the water temperature is still warm enough that, you know, I think a good hard plum one's going to work. You know,
that black's overlooked, man. That black power worm, it's overlooked.
Black is a color that'll bass will eat any day. I mean, you know, because you're throwing out there, you're getting it out deeper where the visualization of that fish is he's not got that good a view.
Right.
If it gets to 20 foot deep, you know, because our water's not that clear, you know. It's perfect. It's the right color. Don't get me wrong. It's, you know, I heard you guys talking about that. Yep. Right now, the bulk of the lake is in prime fishing condition when it comes to the watercolors and stuff. If you want a tiny bit of stained water, go up the lake. If you want real clear water, we've got a couple areas that's that away. So it's really in good shape. The bash will produce a lot of bass. It always does. It always blows me away. All the big money spots will probably be 6-pounders, just like always. Will we see a 7-pounder? Yeah, we could. I mean, I seen a great big giant last week, you know, that I don't know how big it was, but it's big.
I got 7 texts recently that's offering you $5,000 for that waypoint on that dock.
Yeah. I love them fish too much to do that. I wouldn't do that to that poor old bass, you know. That's where me and Ricky Klung really got along good. You know, that fish means more to me than that money. Simple as that, you know. So
yeah.
Good.
And besides that, I got a kid that might fish.
That's right.
I might get more than $5,000 out of him. You got to use my boat. I mean, you know, so I might charge him higher rent. You never know. So,
just all depends on how he does. It's
all depends on how he does. So, all right, what's the next question here?
Why would a thermocline line be a really visible line in some places, very faint and broken down in other places, and then not at all in another place on a small lake?
That depends. The smaller lake might not have a thermocline. Very easily might not have one. You have to have pretty good water depth to really understand the thermocline. And when I say that, we go to a lot of the lakes around the country that don't have one because they're just overall too shallow. Here from PB2 to the dam, the thermocline is about 30. When you turn and you go the other direction, you got some clear water there up to the mouth of Niangua, that the thermocline is going to be just a tiny bit shallower than that. But when you make the corner and you can see the hurricane deck bridge, thermocline is probably not 15, 20 feet up through there, just because the water dirties up. And as the water gets dirtier, the thermocline is shallower. Okay. Now you wouldn't think that'd make that sense, but the clarity of the water is what determines, about where your thermocline is going to end up. Okay. I've already heard guys tell me that the water temperature is to the point where it's turning over. No, the water temperature's got to be 62 to 58 before the water temperature turns over. Now, there's a lot of that green foamy stuff floating around in the back ends of some of these coves and pockets and stuff. Okay, now I'm going to explain that to you why that's there. We had one night, it was a little thunderstorm came through about last Tuesday, and it was all at night. It was from 1 o'clock to about 3 o'clock. It rained 2 inches. Okay, so a lot of these little streams and creeks really flash flooded. I mean, because we ain't had no rain all summer. I mean, we have had 0 rain all summer. That's another reason why it didn't really muddy up a lot of the water, is because the banks are pretty hard. It's just not old soft mud that's going to wash in, because we haven't had no rain. So most of the banks are pretty firm right now in those creeks and stuff. So when we got that big old rain and flushed in, half of those creeks up the river, I mean, really got plowed with about 2 inches of rain. Well, it stirred up that foamy, green, mossy looking floating stuff, the same stuff that will float when the water turns over. But no, the lake's got, 12 to, well, like I say, 58 to 62.
Yeah, it's got a ways to go.
Is what it's got.
It ain't going to happen this weekend for sure.
No. All the water out there is good right now. I mean, up the river, the water's good. Down the lake, the water's good. Simple as that. So
here's a great question from Jay Buffa. He says, is 10 Cup whiskey really your preferred fish attractant scent now?
I tell you what, it helps out with those tough days. I get out there with Payton fishing behind him, and I'll just be quite honest. I was snockered by 2 o'clock. I mean, every day. I drink about a half a gallon and go on from there. But
well, that's why you're catching them in 25 feet of water out the side of the boat. You was dipping it down in that big jug.
I couldn't see where I was throwing about half the time. I've dipped my worm in it. Don't think I haven't. I'm just kidding. That's bad. That's bad for the young.
We won't go anywhere with that.
That's bad for the whiskey, right?
Yeah. Let's not talk about dipping our worm.
We won't talk about what kind of worm you were talking about.
No. Let's get off that.
It's a family program.
Hey, whoever that guy was, tell him to never call back. I actually know that guy. Okay. I know that guy. Okay, who's next?
Backyard Bass and my buddy Greg says, do you like a more compact jig or something with a bigger profile?
I feel like my jig this time of year is a bluegill. Okay. So, I like a bluegill size. So that's a little bit bigger. That's not just a little tiny jig. My jigs, I use 2 or 3 different trailers on it. I use a super chunk, on it. I use a Rage Craw, and I use the bigger Rage Craw on the back of it. And I might shorten it up a little bit. But those are 2 of the main things that I throw a lot of. When I feel like they're more aggressive, I throw Rage Craw. Simple as that, because it's got them 2 little wiggling tails. But I throw that bait, the Rage Craw, because those tails are also super flexible. They swim. I don't care if you're just dragging along the bottom. Them 2 tails are sitting there giving it that. And when they're biting off the bottom, I want my bait to have a swim to it. I want it to paddle through the water. So that's the main 2. The super chunk, it's just basically for size, and I put all the action into that, So, but
when you rig that chunk up, the super chunk, do you thread a piece of worm on the shank of the hook before you put that chunk on there, or you just put the chunk on like it is?
That's not a bad idea, but the way I jerk, I don't need it. But every now and then, if you skip it and it catches it, we'll push it up on the hook, like I'm assuming you're talking about. Every now and then, it gets backed up on the hook and it comes in, crooked.
Right.
So yeah, and I mean, anytime I throw a regular piece of pork, absolutely, I put a worm on there because you don't want that turning around on your hook.
No.
But with that rubber stuff, most of the time I don't worry about it that much. But there's a lot of times that I do string my hook through it. Okay, I string it up on the shank of my hook.
Oh, so you thread it.
Yes, I thread it all the way up on there.
Gotcha.
I just want the two big flappers. Basically, I don't hook it like a piece of regular pork.
Okay.
I normally string it right up on it. I just use it for the size most of the time. But I do like it because I can bob it along, and it those things really give it that. But those are the two that I throw 99% of the time.
Okay, so if you had one jig color to cover all water conditions, would it be black and blue or green pumpkin?
No, it's going to be a bluegill color, a green pumpkin. Yeah.
So even in dirty water?
Yeah.
You had one color. Okay.
Actually, if I had to have one real color to not get to throw anywhere else, it'd be brown live rubber. I've caught them on it everywhere I've ever been.
Okay.
Brown live rubber, and that you can't get it much anymore. So I think it's coming back around, and they're biting it even better than they ever did. If I only could pick one, I've caught them on the Potomac River. I've caught them on the James River. I've caught them in New York State. I've caught them around grass on it. That live rubber's just got a different look to it. And I believe in it. It's one of them deals. I've used it since I was a little bitty kid, and I believe in it. But green pumpkin's about as close as you're going to buy day in, day out of the tackle stores. So
does that live rubber need to be hand tied on?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, to give it that.
If you put it on a skirt, if you put it on a skirt rubber and just string it up on there, it doesn't lay the same.
Yeah.
You got to snug it down around the collar to make it flare out and stay flared out. So
yeah, that's what that Dirk's jig has. A lot of the brown rubber, doesn't it?
Makes all the difference in the world.
Gotcha.
I really wish you hadn't brought that up. I don't like talking about that too much.
I just kind of touched on it. We just kind of slide on past it and keep it in the
You
background.
got to cough really loud when he says something like that.
That's probably my best friend in the whole world, and yeah, it's a big deal. We catch a ton of fish on it.
Yeah, that's a good little jig. It don't look like much, but I know it works. I've heard stories.
Thin stuff. My Uncle Gale used to throw a spinnerbait that I wouldn't throw in the lake. I mean, it wouldn't have 6 strands of skirt rubber on it, and trust me, them old thin rubber skirts, actually, they weren't rubber. They were vinyl back when he fished with them.
Huh.
And he would pull 90% of that out, wouldn't have 6 or 7 strands on his spinnerbait. And trust me, when it came to spinnerbait fishing, I've never been in the boat with anybody that caught as many as he did. And I still do that some around here too. And the Dirk deal just makes a lot of sense. I mean, you ever wonder why them 2 little long legs, the 2 on sides, there's 4 of them? Oh yeah, put that in the water with a crawdad on it, and those 4 legs hang perfectly, just like it's the ones that come off his nose. That's as good a crawdad imitation as you can pitch in the lake. Simple as that. When those 2 side legs break off, I take it off, tie on a new one. So that's how much I believe in it. Because you never see anything sticking out one's gullet except them 2 little long feelers.
That's right.
Right at the end of his nose. And trust me, that Dirk jig, when you put a little crawdad on the back of it, that's crawdad. Simple as that. That is a crawdad. The way he wraps those skirts.
Yeah,
my dad probably enjoyed being around him as much as any human being I've ever been around. And it was all because of how much thought he put into making the right fishing bait. Simple as that. And he liked throwing jigs. So Dad was all in on that.
Yeah. Right.
So him and Dirk got along great. And like I say, it's that jig, it just makes all the sense. all the sense in the world, and the way he works it and everything else, once you get to think about how you're pulling that thing along the bottom and how you're working it along and stuff like that, and the trailers you put on it, makes all the sense in the world. Bass fishing is not hard at all. You just have to have a lot of common sense. Simple as that. Make your bait look right. Simple as that. And any given day, you can string on a green pumpkin jig, put on a green pumpkin trailer, and go catch a bass. Okay? That ain't the days I'm talking about. The days when it's 1 o'clock and you got 2 in the boat, you better make that son of a gun look right, because you ain't fooling him that day. You have not fooled him. And so make it look perfect. Take that little garlic marker and put a little pinchers on him and stuff like that. Take an extra few minutes and make your bait look right. Because there's lots of times when they're not biting, he sees it and lets it go by. It comes by his stump or his tree, and he just like, oh, there it is. And it doesn't look right. It's not perfect. So he's like, I'm not that hungry anyways.
You put it in front of plenty of them, but you just didn't fool any of them.
That's right. You did not fool him. And like I said again, a big giant bass is a professional eater. Okay. Yeah. I think that's why I get along with them, because I know I'm a professional eater. I walk into a buffet, and if there's a table full of little 120-pounders sitting there close to the bar, I will scatter their ass. I'll say, get the hell out of my table.
Move over.
And then me and Lawson and Payton squat down there with them. We're an intimidating bunch when it comes to eating. And,
you intimidate. I bet you all intimidate a lot of buffet owners when you walk in the store.
I've had them run me off and give me money not to come back.
We're going now. You've been here 4 hours.
Me and Peter T. When you fish those 4 and 5 day events, you don't eat good at all. You just don't eat good. You're lucky if you get a meal before 10 o'clock, and most of the time you're too tired to eat. And me and Peter T. Kenyon Hill in his round days, we used to call Kenyon Circle K, because he was just big rounds, he was tall. But me, Peter T., Kenyon Hill, another buddy of ours, John Ladd from South Carolina, we walked into a seafood buffet. Oh. Needless to say, about 2 hours into it, and it was good. Everything you ate was awesome. About 2 hours into it, I see that our waitress walk to the edge of the kitchen.
Did you say 2 hours?
Yeah, 2 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, it was over. We were starving to death. And needless to say, she got to pointing. And I told the boys, I said, boys, we're fixing to get run out of here. And Pete's like, no, we're not. It's a buffet. They know how it's going to be every now and then. Out walks the owner of the restaurant. He walks over to the table and he says, boys, it sure looks like you're enjoying that stuff. I said, my God, it's as good as I ever had. He says, well, have you never eaten at a seafood place before? I said, maybe not one that was this good. And he reaches in his pocket and he pulls out a wad of cash about that big around. He peels us all off a $5 bill. He said, boys, for the next time you come into my establishment, he said, you stop by McDonald's and you get all the dollar burgers you can get for that $5. And he said, you choke them down and then you're welcome to come back. But he said, if you don't, he said, don't ever come back to my establishment. He said, I've served 600 people tonight. And he said, one table has took away all my profits. And I said, I really apologize. He said, trust me. He said, next time we have a tournament coming in this area, he said, I'm voting it down. He said, I'm not going to go for it. He said, not if you 4 or 5 big bastards.
We got to cook. We got to cook in the back. It's on overtime just to try to keep up with you guys.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. When he went to peeling them $5 bills off, I thought, oh, this is serious,
That's hilarious.
He said, yeah, you get all $5 worth off the dollar menu. And he said, then come see me.
Guys out there that are watching this, if you're enjoying this, and I know you are, make sure you smash that thumbs up. That really helps support the channel, and consider subscribing to it. This has been a lot of fun. I know I pitched this to you for 20 minutes, and we've been on here for quite a while. If you're willing to stay on for just a little bit more, we'll keep you on. And if you got to go, okay, great. We'll see. We'll see if we got any more questions down here.
You go right ahead. I'm good.
Okay, Zach says one of his best memories of Lake of the Ozarks is when he made a top 10 with Guido and Dion in a Stern series. Strand series. Stern.
Oh,
yeah. It was
did that.
right letters. I had him spun around. He said,
we did that 2 or 3 times. Is there something else to the question? I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Oh no, you're fine. He was just saying, so yeah, I skipped with the best up there. So he was giving you a shout out for your skipping skills back in the days and modern times as well.
The closest we ever finished was in that one FLW Open tournament. We finished 1st and 4th in it. But some of the two dayers and stuff, we both made top 10. I was telling the boys the other day that they did something that me and Dad never did. Being 1st and 2nd. Me and Dad finished 1st and 3rd in 4 different tournaments over my, 35 years of fishing against him. And Tommy Biffle finished between us. He finished 2nd 3 out of the 4 of those times. And I still cuss him to this day when I see him, that I never got to finish 1st and 2nd to Dad. But
that was all flipping tournaments too.
It was good stuff. Yeah. Most of them, two out of the 4 was on Grand Lake, Yeah. Them guys don't like us down there at Grand Lake in the fall. Yeah. It fishes way too much like Lake of the Ozarks.
Living Missouri Outdoors says, will the glide bait be a sleeper or will a true classic bait win again? The Big Bass Bash.
I can tell you, I don't think a glide bait, I don't think you can do what it's supposed to at the depth that the bulk of the big ones are at right now. And I might be wrong. They might make glide baits that you can work, 20 foot deep or something like that. I think a lot of those big ones are still out there, in that 20-foot class. So, and that's just my opinion. That's what I fished and caught last week. Now Peyton caught a few good ones. Lawson caught a few good ones up shallow. Don't get me wrong. But still, like Peyton had 3 4-pounders the last day and a 3.5, but the 3 4-pounders all were just a skosh deeper than the bulk of the fish he caught. So I still think there's a lot of them better ones that are just out there deeper. And I'm not a glide bait,
guru.
I'm not a glide bait guru by no means. I've thrown it a few times and I've caught some fish on it. But I think if you're going to fish out there for that, it's going to end up being a swim bait of some sort or a big spoon.
So which area of the lake do you think will produce the biggest bass? If you were fishing it, where would you head to?
PB2, fish around the glade.
Yeah.
You can't, and you laughed at it right there. You got the immediate chuckle.
That's a smart move, though, man. That's why I laughed.
That's the smartest deal.
Yeah.
There's more fish over 5 pounds in the glaze arm than anywhere on Lake of the Ozarks. Anywhere. And it's just, they get turned loose in there twice a week.
Is there a weigh site right there too at PB2? I'm assuming.
What do you mean?
For the Big Bass Bash, I'm sure that's
absolutely.
Checking stations.
Yeah.
You can weigh in right there.
Yeah, you got a 5-minute run back there, if that, and
it's just that place is so full of bass. Simple as that. If I was going to go fish for them, it'd probably be in the glaze. And they say that there's 1,500 out of the 3,000 stay in there. What difference does it make? You're not throwing at docks for the bulk of the time. You're throwing at banks, and points and stuff like that. If it was totally dock riddled, like the Niangua or something like that, then I might change my attitude on that. But we caught just as many not around docks, out in the open. And like I say, if you're going to fish to win that thing, you're going to have to fish around the bulk of the fish. Simple as that,
The more you catch, the better chance you got.
I would tell you to go up at the Mid-Lakes weigh-in site. No, they cleaned that out. Lawson started in there the first day, had 3, and when he left, there were 16 boats going around it. So, wow. Those are all gone. They brought all those back to PB2 and turned them loose. So yeah, And all the other weigh-in sites, they don't weigh in enough to make a difference, you know.
Well, I'm gonna release a little bit of information here, and I just learned this over the weekend. If you go, maybe I shouldn't. I will. Okay, if you go to the Missouri Water Patrol and you check out the regatta permits, it'll tell you whatever tournament has happened on whichever lake you want to check out. And the wise thing to do if you're looking for retreads or release fish is you can tell where a tournament went out. And if it's a big tournament, there's going to be a lot of fish in that area. So just throwing that out there for you guys.
I'm going to tell you right now, I have, back when they first started really throwing them in there and having lots of tournaments, you know, every weekend there's a couple tournaments out of PB2. You know, me and my dad were big on working harder than everybody else. So we would put in brush, okay? And we would stock those brush piles. We would take fish there all summer long and put them in a good pile of brush. We would also bait those brush piles. We would drop a burlap sack down with them, clear, full of crawdads. Cut a little tiny slice in it. That way they only crawl out every now and then. We would bait those things. Every one we ever put in the glaze, I never caught squat out of, okay? We would go in the glaze. Now, this is back when my dad was guiding a lot. We would go in the glaze 2 or 3 days after a big tournament with live crawdads. Live crawdads. And sometimes we would never catch a bass that would have a hook hole in it. That's the craziest dang stuff I ever seen. Now, wow. I know eventually they have to start biting again. But a lot of times it takes them a week or two. You know, it takes them a little while to do it. And trust me, if you go in the glaze, everyone you catch out of the Grand Glaze, check it. Look at his mouth. And there'll be a red sore on it if he's been caught. 90% of them will not have a hook hole in them. And I've always believed that large batches of fish draw more fish. Simple as that. They collect other fish, you know. Fish are pack animals. Simple as that. They're school animals. And they bring in even fresh ones that's never been hooked, you know, just because of the population, you know, tons of them. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, everybody.
That's not that far off the Osage, you know, that PB2. I mean, no. as a fish travels, it's not that far away.
No.
So that makes sense.
Half a day they're gone, you know, about half the time.
Yeah. So Jacob wants to know, so when you're fishing for a tournament, what is the reason you would fish different parts of the lake? You may fish up the gravel one day and then up the 50-mile marker the next.
Well, you know, it depends on the days, okay? Sunshiny days, I normally like that stained water a little bit. Cloudy days, I want the cleanest water on the lake most times. That's just my rule of thumb. I've won a lot of 2-dayers and 3-dayers on Lake of the Ozarks, and normally that's my rule of thumb right there. If it's cloudy, I want to be on the low end where the cleanest water is, or the Niagara, or never leave the glaze. But on the bright blue days like what we had for the 2-dayer this weekend, I normally want to be to where I'm only got 1.5 feet of visibility, something like that. You know, and that's just my opinion. I think the fish bite better, you know, in bright sunshiny days. They just, a little bit of stain helps you get around them and fish. I'm a big believer in being sneaky, you know, and watching what I do with my boat and stuff like that.
You need a kayak, man. You ever fished out of a kayak?
No, because I'm too lazy. Yeah, no chance of that. No, sorry. My kayak's got a 250 Mercury 4-stroke.
Amen, brother.
It's got a trolling motor that's got 140 pounds of thrust. That's my kayak right there. I'm not begrudging the kayakers because it looks like fun, but it wears me out watching them.
It does not look like fun. Now some of the fish,
no way.
They catch.
They got those paddle.
No, they still got to use my. I push a button and it goes.
That's right. And if it don't, I buy new batteries.
That's right.
You know,
I worked a long time to get this big. I don't want to. I don't want to lose it.
We're gonna piss off all the kayakers in the world. We don't want to do that. We want to make all fishermen happy.
That's right. We're all part of one big family. That's
right. We all like to catch a bass.
That's right.
But you know, it's it's one of those deals that I pay attention to my shadow. A lot of people don't pay attention to their shadow. Well, when you're fishing at 5 foot or less, guess what? That fish sees that. He sees your shadow. So in the mornings, I pay real close attention to what gets there first. Is my shadow in front of me as I'm going? And if it is, there's a lot of times I will go idle up into the creek, come back the other direction, just so my shadow's not leading me down the bank. When I get to a dock, and let's just say you either get hung up on it or you just speed up there a little too fast, never turn your trolling motor around. If you turn your trolling motor around, you are boiling that water. You'll see that boil come up in front of your boat. Okay. If you're close to a boat dock and you do that, that boil of water, because it's got a solid base surface above it, being those dock foams, it'll roll clean under that dock till it gets to the other side. And then you'll hear it every now and then. You hear it whoosh, where it comes out from the other side of the boat dock. Well, guess what? If you do that, you're not going to catch one under that boat dock. Simple as that. So you have to pay attention. You have to slip up on them. You have to be sneaky. People, when I skip a lot, sometimes I miss. When I miss, it's horrific. Okay. When I miss, it's got enough steam behind it. I've sunk a half a dozen pontoons in my life. I shoot a jig head clean through them damn things. And that makes a lot of noise.
Yeah.
It also makes them look up. So I'm going to tell you right now, I miss every now and then. I hit that piece of styrofoam so hard sometimes it ruins my jig. But also, it can make one look to the surface.
Yeah.
I think that all of that stuff you got to pay attention to. If I can skip it in there, the way I skip is not actually a forceful deal. Every now and then when I want it to go to the other side of the dock, I will. But 90% of it, mine's pretty subtle. I just haul off and sling it in there. But like I say, do I think that noise makes a ton of difference? Not as much as like your trolling motor wash and stuff like that. Just pay attention.
What if somebody was wanting to learn to skip a jig? I didn't mean to cut you off, but I kept meaning to ask you this. And I keep forgetting. If somebody's wanting to learn how to skip a jig under a dock or just skip a jig in general, what's the best weight to start with?
Oh, you got to keep your stuff. It's no different than skipping a flat rock. You got to make your bait fairly compact to where it doesn't have a lot of appendages flailing around on it. That'll drag your skip down. A lot of times that's why I skip that super chunk, is because it folds over. It's so limber, it kind of folds up and it makes one old package going in there. Whenever you're skipping stuff, you don't want anything loose to where it's going to hit. Like I say, I watched the super chunk go in a million times, and most of the time it folds up over the jig and goes in there. And yes, it makes that noise, by the way. But same way with with the Strike King bait I was telling you about.
Rage
crawl.
Yeah. Same way. Those legs are so limber that most of the time they fold up into the skirt as it goes. So you don't have a lot of stuff out in the open flapping around. So make sure you throw it. The 3/4 ounce stuff, really hard to flip. You got to really be feathering it in there. As you skip, I don't care if you skip forcefully, just haul off and sidearm it. You got to raise your rod tip up, okay? Because your line slows it down more than anything. When you're skipping your line, if you skip it and you keep your rod real low, then your line gets in the water and it drags it down. So everything I skip, if I skip this way or if I skip this way, I'm raising my rod tip up as it's going in. I'm raising that rod tip up, and all that doing is keeping my line out of the water until it gets under the dock to where you got no choice. It's going to go down. And that's a big key to doing it. Guys that really just haul off, sidearm it, sling it in there, a lot of times they do that and they keep their rod down. Well, the line gets in the water, and as soon as that line gets in the water, it just sucks it to a stop. And other than that, you can't use too stiff a rod. The rod I use is a Lew's. It's called a Hammer, and it's a 7.3, and it's about a 70-30 mix. It's got about 70% backbone and about 30% tip. To most fishing rods, that's going to be about a medium heavy, because you have to have that tip. You have to have that 30% that you can swing around, and that just makes you a more accurate caster. If you use a real heavy action rod, then the only way you're going to get it in there is to force it in there. Because if you don't have a little bit of tip to make that go in there, you have to use your whole arm. You have to haul off and sling it in there. Everything I do is right here. It's my wrist. There's no doubt why Lawson and Payton look like arm wrestling champions. It's because of sliding it in there, skipping it in there, because they got a lot of power right here, and in their wrist. You go to shake hands, don't piss them off. That's all I can tell you. Because if you do, they're going to hurt you. Here's a cool one. Payton broke his hand the first day of the tournament, unloading the boat.
Broke his hand?
On his right hand that he does everything with. He came in that night and he says, "What do you think about this?" I said, "Your hand's broke." I said, "Those black lines running down your hand mean that that's a broken bone."
Oh.
I said, "When did you do that?" He said, "This morning unloading the boat." The latch, he unhooked the latch and his co-angler was backing him in, and it slung over and hit him right on top of the hand. And when it did, he jerked it out. And when he jerked it out, the boat came down on top of his hand and smashed his hand between there and the little rubber deal on the front of your boat you run it into.
Oh, dang.
And he come in after first day, and I said, "What's the matter?" And he says, "I think I got a broken bone." And it runs clean up through the middle part of his hand. I mean, this section of his hands, I mean, it's boogered up. It's crazy looking today. But
he been using it all day too.
Oh, fished with it the second day.
Hey.
He says, "Well, I can't go to the doctor. They'll want to put a cast on it." I said, "Yep, they probably will." So he fished with it the second day too. So,
God, did he at least go to the doctor today?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Dad finally had to put his foot down and said, "Yep, going to the doctor."
Wow.
And his little wife said, "Yeah, I'm not living with you sitting around bitching and taking a gallon of Tylenols."
Yeah, we need to get this healed up as soon as possible. You're going to the doctor.
Yeah. That's
what about a spinner bait? Spinner bait going to do any damage at the big bass?
It could just because a lot of the fish are off the bottom. They're not related to the bottom. A lot of them are suspended. So yeah, a big spinner bait could work too. If it was me, I'd probably throw a big single spin of some sort. Throw like a 5/8 to a 3/4 ounce spinner bait with a single willow leaf. Maybe a 6 or something like that. I don't like getting into those great big giant ones because, then you're detouring fish somewhat. I mean, you get to a 7 or an 8, guess what? That fish can't really get to the hook that good, for that blade coming around and whacking him in the head when he's swimming up there behind it to get it,
Yeah, you put an eye out.
Oh, yeah. But, that would be something I would possibly have laid out. And, I'd swim it clean under them docks. There's lots of times I throw down the side of a dock that doesn't have a cross piece. If it's got a cross piece, you can't really do it. But if it doesn't have a cross piece, I throw down the side of the dock, stick my rod down in the water and punch my button. I go all the way around to the other side of the dock and wind it under it. Takes a little bit of time, but boy, it sure does make you feel smart every now and then.
I did a little bit of that this weekend, fishing out of the back of the boat. It didn't pay off, but
my dad used to do that with a Carolina rig in the spring and stuff like that. And I mean, he says, you can't get them all. He said, there's too much room under there for him to hide. He said, so the only way he's ever going to see your crap is for you to lead it around and go all the way up underneath it. And the thing of it is you have to use your head a little bit about what's going on. 3,000 boats, or not 3,000 boats, but still 1,500 boats, that type of stuff. they're going to see everything, even crap you and I haven't thought about. They're going to see different baits and stuff like that. And anywhere where you can cast, so is everybody else. They're going to try them, I used to think, well, the average Joe doesn't throw behind them boat cables. That's the thing of the past. Now everybody does it, So, just think about stuff like that, where you can get your bait that maybe the other 20 boats that went down the same bank with you that morning didn't, make the effort, it's different for me because, I get deals on my boats and stuff like that. So there's lots of times that if I can barely squeeze between two docks, that's where I go. I intentionally try to get in there. And it's nothing more than the average Joe doesn't do that, because he spent $70,000 on his boat, and he don't want to get it in that close to that stuff, So you eliminate a few fishermen that way, so you just got to think about those kind of things. Where did everybody else not get to, and that's a big deal for me. And that's part of that common sense I was talking about, about half the fish paid and weighed in this tournament. Ain't nobody going in there. Simple as that. I know the wrap on my 10 cup Camus showed me that, oh yeah, you've been back in some stuff today, huh? But that's why you do it.
That's battle scars.
You go in there to you catch to catch that one right one, the one fish that makes a difference. You can't fish this lake without taking some chances, because there's enough really, really good fishermen in the tournament that they're not going to let that happen to you. You're not going to squeeze by those guys just on strictly fishing hard and stuff like that. There's lots and lots of stuff. If Earl Bentz knew where I put my bass boat, sometimes he would probably not sponsor me at all. But so far he ain't complained, and the only person that I know of that's worse than me, I'm related to both of them. And they were first and second.
Wonder where they learned that at.
They were in first and second after the first day. So, yep, I know exactly how they do it. And it ain't always, it's just to get to some place that, 10 of the 50 that's fished it didn't get to, and you just try to make your odds a little bit better. Try to get the stuff, try to put your bait where nobody else has, dude, I still carry around flying lures. I got them in the boat.
Really?
Always. Absolutely.
Top secret stuff there.
There are places it will get to that you can't get to.
I've caught fish on those before. I forgot about them, but that little gliding up underneath their action.
I enjoy that as much as anything. People think, oh man, I say, and I tell them right up front, I said, there's one thing about me. I ain't phony, Oh, don't give me that. You took flying lures for a ride. I'm like, absolutely, I did. And then I pulled my box out in the boat, and they're like, holy crap, you got them. I'm like, yep, I carry them everywhere I go. There's a time on that walkway foam, the shallow walkway foam.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I got one rigged up on 30-pound braid. I sling that dude in there and stop it. And when I stop it, I just see it disappear back under that walkway foam. And trust me, every now and then, that's what it takes. That shallow stuff gets thrown at a lot. Okay. Because, and it's just because it's the shallowest piece. So there's lots and lots of lures go around the edges of that, and, every now and then he ain't coming out. And when he don't come out, I send something in there after him,
You got the banjo minnow in the same box as that?
I don't have the banjo minnow. No. The banjo minnow, guess what? That was actually, you could put a pine cone on the back of that the way it was hooked. You nose hook anything, it's got more action,
Mm-hmm.
That was not a bad idea. Put a fluke on there, it's going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That is not a bad idea.
Yeah.
It's a bad idea for landing them. Yeah, you're going to miss a bunch.
Put a little hitchhiker in the nose and then just hook it on the hook.
But it does wiggle better. Simple as that. See, you're throwing stuff at me. I can defend right here. Helicopter, don't even mention helicopter.
I was going there next. Okay. Thanks for cutting me off.
Because a helicopter makes no sense whatsoever.
I caught them farm pond bass like them though.
You can throw anything in the lake. You can string on a dog turd every now and then and catch one when they're biting. Okay.
That's right.
But when they're not biting, I want it to look good, So a banjo man is, like I say, it's just a drop shot without a weight.
It looks really good.
That's why they bite a drop shot, is because that bait really, it's when you nose hook them, just the bait looks more natural, moves around really easy, and so yeah. Bill Dance, yes. Roland Martin, no. He'll do anything for money. I'm just going to tell you right now. Bill,
let's rapid fire a few of these questions here real quick. Osage or Niangua section of the lake for the big bass of the tournament? Any guess?
Oh, it would probably be the Niangua more than the Osage. Just because I know the pounding that the Osage took this week. Simple as that. So if it was me doing it, yeah, I probably wouldn't go up the Osage too much. So.
Gotcha. Scott says Dion put on the best seminar he's ever been to. Had the stories of his father and the lake. Truly a legend. Yeah, 100%. I mean, just in this little short live stream, it's been nonstop good stories.
I think we need to
great
go down
information,
there.
man.
I think we need to go down there and get a lesson on skipping. Is what we need to do.
Yeah, no, I'm an okay skipper, but
you guys and the viewers that are watching this, you don't have to smooze me. I'm here anyways. It does feel nice every now and then to be appreciated, but no, I enjoy talking about fishing. That's the thing. And when you get good questions like this, that's easy for me. I enjoy it. I really do. I fished all my life. If I can't share a little bit of it with everybody, what's the point? I want this sport to go places. I want it to continue to grow and grow and grow. And like I say, when my dad passed away, the first thing that I thought with all my buddies that were here that I've traveled with all my life, that's the first thing that we said to each other. Oh my God, we should have wrote a book, or we should have recorded some of that stuff, because he would spit stuff out that you would think, wait a minute, is he being serious? And in the end, you realize that was just something natural to him. That's the way it was. And everything that he did do was just like what I've tried to tell you all and show you all. A lot of it was just common sense. My dad didn't finish high school. And the day he passed away, as far as I'm concerned, he was the most intelligent human being that I'd ever been around. And I've heard Ricky Klung say the same thing. He said, man, I can just love to listen to him talk, because everything he says makes sense, and it's nothing more than fish sense. It's all just fishing for him his whole life, fish sense, simple as that. When my sons end up with that, holy crap, they'll, they think this weekend was tough on them. Yeah, wait till they get really established and get the right kind of knowledge on their own, not coming from me, but experience is a huge deal. Simple as that. And really, with the effect of not having any co-anglers in the boat anymore, in all of our big tournaments, we don't even have co-anglers anymore. Simple as that. How are we going to pass this stuff on? Where does it? I don't get to fish with Lawson, hardly any at all. I think we fished together 3 times this year. And that was just because one of our boats was broken or something, and we had to, instead of sitting at the service crew for 2 hours, we went fishing together for a little bit. So this stuff's got to get passed on through this avenue, through YouTube stuff, podcast, and it's just one of those deals that I want my grandkids to fish. Simple as that. I want them to have this sport somewhere down the road to go to and to fish. And I do believe there's lots and lots of good fishermen. But I think a lot of these organizations, when they eliminated co-anglers, just because a few sniveling young, most of them that complained about co-anglers, young fishermen. Simple as that. Okay? And the reason they do that is those young guys, because of the information age and cell phones and everything else, they don't have people skills. So therefore, they don't want to even talk to a guy that's 20 feet away from them in the back of the boat that can't cast at anything if he doesn't want them to. But every now and then, one of them co-anglers makes a good cast, catches a big bass, pisses them off. Well, it's not a professional sport. Wait a minute. If you can't take that away from a guy that's 20 feet behind you, shame on you. You shouldn't even be in the bass tournament. If he made a cast that you shouldn't have already made, the heck with it. You shouldn't be out there anyways. A lot of guys never had to grow up fishing the invitationals. The invitationals when you draw another pro. When you did that, you develop people skills.
Yeah.
And the people skills is what helps you with sponsorship, getting along with people. But like I say, a little handful of young guys got pissed off at some of them co-anglers because some of them, caught a fish that they thought they should have. I'm now them kids are in high school teams, college teams. How's that kid going to fish with me? How's he going to get in my boat? And me teach him anything. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I do.
No avenue for him to do that anymore, except in like BFLs, and once I get to the status that I am, I don't fish them tournaments as much anymore.
Right.
So how are these guys going to learn that last little tidbit that they need, to put them over the top to be a true professional fisherman, and it's all changed. You can't talk to other people and learn that from YouTube. You have to be taught that by the fathers and good people that you believe in and you trust and stuff like that. That's where that comes from. And like I say, in this day and age, there's so many of these kids just don't have that. They don't have any people skills whatsoever. I've had them in the boat with me, say, well, do you want to talk today? And I'm like, hell yeah, I do. If I don't, I'll throw your ass out of the boat.
If I stop talking, there's something wrong.
Yes, if I quit talking, by God, we're going to suck. It's going to be a bad day for both of us, and it's just so much of this stuff. I hear, well, he's not much fun to fish with. He actually told me he couldn't concentrate and talk at the same time. And I'm like, wait a minute. How does he function in life? Well, I don't like to talk. It screws up my focus. By God, let me tell you something. That's the guy that rode the short bus is all I can tell you. And, but I believe in co-anglers. They're who buys the bass boats. If I put you in the back of my boat and took you fishing for an 8-hour day, just the person that I am, guess what? Most of the stuff that I use that day, the next time you go to buy tackle or you go to buy a boat, you're going to buy what I gave you a good time with.
100%.
Simple as that. 100%. If you went out there and you had a terrible time, guy didn't talk to you all day long, you're not going to buy his stuff. Simple as that. And, why are these sponsors on here? These sponsors are on here because I treat people right, and I give them something. I teach them a little bit of something through the day, and when you quit talking to those guys that buy the fishing tackle, yeah, you're not going to make it far in this sport, and it's like I say, it's a pet peeve of mine. I know I've just ranted on it for about 5 minutes and I want to get away from that. But like I say, where's the next greats coming from? They ain't coming out of college, because most of them boys come out of college, they have got freaking college loans out the wazoo. They might talk their parents into putting some money into them, and and then back-to-back years, a college kid wins the classic. Trust me, boys and girls, that's not going to happen very often.
Well, we discussed that a couple of weeks ago on this. I think it was with Matt about coming out of college and just going straight into fishing. And I, personally, I think that's terrible. because you've developed nothing. You have no responsibilities. You have let's say $100,000 worth of debt on the low end, and you just bought a boat, or mom and dad bought a boat. You just bought a truck, or mom and dad bought a truck, and you're going to go do this career that on a good year you might make $50,000, $60,000, $70,000
even, probably. Yeah, on a good year.
On a good year, on a okay year, you're even with your entry and all your travel.
Yeah.
They see that carrot at that $100,000 payday, but they also don't see the 360 days a year that you're on the road, or that you're away from your family, that you miss all those things.
Well, then they don't have any job experience too.
Yeah,
like
exactly. Now you got 4 or 5 years of no job experience.
They don't have the 2 or 4 year job experience that most employers want to see before they hire into some kind of tech job or something.
And
a
lot of guys are going to look at me and say, well, he never had a job. I truly never had a job. Okay. It was different for me. My father did the same thing that I wanted to do. So it was just like us getting up and going to work in the morning together. Simple as that. And the fortunate part of it was, as far as I know, he was probably the best angler ever to live. Simple as that. I got to follow him around everywhere we went, and I got to learn from him and stuff like that. And, so it was definitely made easy for me in a lot of the directions. The shortcuts on sponsors and stuff like that, made all the difference in the world. I still do quite a few seminars in the wintertime. And I'm not going to mention any names, but I have been at some of them with some of these young guys, and everybody says, "Oh, he's good with people. He's good with, he signs all the autographs and stuff like that." And then I look at him, I'm like, okay, but how much did he talk to you? How much did you get out of him that you didn't just ask a question? Okay, if you have to ask a question to talk to me, I don't have very good people skills. Simple as that. Okay. I want to talk to everybody that I see, and it's not that way anymore. I mean,
You froze up there. I'm sure you can hear me though. Come back to us. Come back to us. He's froze up. I'm sure he'll be back in a second. But he's hitting on a good solid point. I mean, like when I saw him down there was several people around him talking to him. If you can hear us, Dion, you can click out and come back in, come back in on that link. But he had people all around, and I was about to leave, but I saw him over there. And so I made sure I walked over there and said hi to him. And he recognized my face right off the bat, and we talked, and it was kind of cool of him the last minute. Today I was trying to figure out, who could get on here to talk about the Big Bass Bash in Lake of the Ozarks, and I sent him a text, and he replied back just right on the spot, 2 hour notice, or well, not 2 hour notice, but 12-hour notice. And he was like, cool, I don't have anything going on. Let's jump on here, share some information.
Well, you know what he was just talking about of people skills, and how many questions have we asked him tonight? Like 3, and we're 2 hours and 3 minutes in.
He just rolls.
He just keeps on going. We don't have to do anything. We're providing the platform.
And the guy, and he's seen so much out there. He's seen the trends come and go, and this and that. And like you said, he's got the best mentor anybody could, ever ask for.
Sure. 100%.
I mean,
not only your hero, but like he said, one of the best fishermen, if not the best fisherman,
right,
that's ever been on the planet.
Yeah, and in his eyes, it definitely was. So I don't know if he's going to come back in here, but everybody that's on here, it was great of you guys to stop by. I hope you appreciated it. And once again, give us a thumbs up if you like it, and consider subscribing. And good luck in the Big Bass Bash. That little sneaky casting out and spooling and putting your rod tip down and going into the dock, that's pretty sneaky. Yes, that's pretty sneaky because you can skip a jig back in the stalls, and you can skip in between the floats and
how
the
many
flips,
jigs go that way?
Well, you can't actually get underneath the float that's on the water, but you can if you cast at an angle, free spool. I did a little bit of that.
Well, and how many fish see a jig go left to right,
the other way
across the dock? Not
very many of them. Not very many of them.
It's sneaky.
So yeah. I don't know if we got any more questions on here. Let me scroll down through these real quick and see if we can touch on anything. We missed a lot of questions. I do apologize. And we're going to have him back on here probably next couple months. So we'll definitely do the social media posts and let you guys know when he's going to come back. I want to do like a story hour with Dion. Oh, story 2 hours with Dion, where he just talks about
We might
his
start
dad
at like
and-
5:30 and just
Yeah.
let him roll.
Yeah, we might start at lunchtime.
We'll go to the buffet. We'll find a buffet to go close down.
Exactly. Funny stuff. All right, we're gonna shut this sucker down. It's been fun. Appreciate all you guys for checking out this this channel. I know a lot of you guys are new on here. Appreciate you spending some time with us, and we will be back next week. Next week we're gonna have Brent Anderson. He is a former Kentucky Lake guy, tournament fisherman, and I think he's since moved down to somewhere down in the South, Florida or Texas or somewhere. And he's
warm water.
He's a guide, and he's going to come on here. We're going to probably talk about big topwater fishing. He's a topwater swim bait guy.
He's a stick in the fall.
He's a stick in the fall. You know, he was Mr. Fall down there at Kentucky Lake. He won so many tournaments in the fall.
Yep.
Definitely knows fall fishing, and we're gonna break down some where can you buy Dirk's jigs? Andy wants to know. I saw him at Fitz's fishing right there in Osage Beach. I know he had some on the wall. Dirk was actually in there when I went in there. Other than that, I don't know. You could probably there's
Apex Tackle.
There you go.
You can buy
Jay
Dirks.
Beffa, my man. There you go. Jay Beff has got your back. They're cool jigs. Really
I'll
cool
have to check
jigs.
those out.
Yeah, they're half ounce, really small. They have about 16 strands of fiber in them. They look like nothing, but they're just sneaky.
Sneaky.
They work, man. I've heard tons of stories. Let me check my notes here, make sure I've covered everything.
I do appreciate some of the comments that you guys threw up about YouTube channel names for me. I have not came up with a name yet. I just filmed my first little video this weekend, and that's what we're going to talk about after stream. I got some learnings to do to get my cameras all figured out. So
Deaver and Lloyd have Dirk's Apex Tackle. So we got a second on that Apex Tackle.
Perfect. So if you guys do have any more names, I'm still open
Jonathan's
for
starting a YouTube channel. Or he started a
suggestions.
YouTube channel. He's open for names for the channel. So
Thank you, Ken, by the way, for throwing those out there. I got them all wrote down in my book, so really appreciate that.
Yeah, we were going to go over some fall techniques, but obviously we've got something better than just two guys going over fall techniques.
Well, what did we say? 20? You called me this afternoon. It was 20 minutes with Dion, and then we were going to go over some.
Yeah,
fall baits here.
I said you want to come on here for 20 minutes, and it's 2 hours. So it's good stuff.
7 minutes. Hella bass.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna wrap this up. Once again, thanks a lot. Good luck, Big Bass Bash. Hope you guys catch them, and we will see you guys next week. Appreciate everything.
Smash that thumbs up.